live here. I'll make sure it's on mute.
Says live on YouTube.
Live on YouTube. All right.
Takes about 15 seconds to push out. Okay, good. And we're in
Okay.
gallery view.
All
Yes,
right.
we are good, Miss.
All right. So it's 7:04. So let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Town of Poolesville Commissioners. It's September 8th. And I'll go ahead and say the Pledge of Allegiance for us today. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one
under
nation,
God,
Under God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all.
Thank you. The first on our agenda is our commissioner reports, and I'll just go ahead and start. We've had a farmer's market past several weekends on the Commons. It's been happening Saturdays 9 to 1, and thanks to the Cozy Family Farm Cooperative who is organizing this. And then thanks again to the Parks Board who recommended to this body last year that we go ahead and allow farmers markets on the Commons. So hopefully that'll be a good addition to our town moving forward. MCPS online learning has begun. Just thought I would mention it and shout out to everyone who's dealing with that. It's a crazy world that we're in now. There's a group of parents headed by Lynn Shaber, a community member, Fair Access Committee member, who have been working on a sort of set of, I think they're calling it Safe Learning Hub, where they're working mainly with churches in the area to provide spaces for kids who just need a place to be to actually do their virtual learning or to do other extracurricular activities. So that's something that's kind of being put together right now. And Parks Board meets tomorrow evening. Martin, do you want to go next with Commissioner's report?
Yeah, mine's going to be real quick. We meet next Wednesday, so I don't have anything to report to you now, but stay tuned.
All right. Val, how about you?
Well, I wish I could say we were meeting, but there is no meetings when it comes to events. Just so sad. I know I repeat myself every month, but I do know that, you know, between myself, Kathy, and Seth, we are staying on top of what's happening and constantly thinking of, you know, ways and the days that we get to reconvene when it comes to events. So I have nothing to report.
Yes, it is sad indeed. Thank you, though. And Jerry,
Yes, am I on?
Yes, you are.
you're on.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if you've heard, but they shortened the census time from the end of October to the end of September. Now the courts have gotten involved and supposedly have said, no, you're not going to end it in September. You're going to continue until October.
Oh, wow.
Whether that happens or not, we'll see as to if there's any other sort of appeals on that or whatever. But the Poolesville census response rate has increased to 85.6%, which is 3.2% better than our 2010 census response rate. You know that the county health department canceled the COVID-19 testing at the Poolesville Baptist Church, but we'll be rescheduling it for sometime this month. And I've emailed the point of contact for additional info to let us know as to when that will happen. And another interesting note is the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth, Victim Services announced its 2020-2021 appointments for the Maryland Youth Advisory Council, and Miss Lauren Raskin of Brookville, who is a junior at Poolesville High School, was appointed to the council. And then, so that basically covers it. I have some stuff that, with respect to MML, would you want me to go over that now? It relates to both the upcoming session and the small cell recent Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals opinion. It was in this past month, and basically it says that the requirements of the original FCC order are upheld. Shorter shot clocks limit the fees to cost-based under specific dollar amounts were upheld. Requirements in the order that are overturned are aesthetic regulations to be more burdensome than regulations applied to other infrastructure. However, the small cell in the district court, DC District Court of Appeals, overturned part of the FCC order exempting small cells from review under National Environmental Protection Act and the National Historic Preservation Act. In respect to the Ninth Circuit Court's decision, there is a coalition of local governments that are going to appeal the FCC's order and is looking at to file a petition for en banc review of this decision, as it is believed this will result in a more favorable decision for local governments. And the deadline for filing is the September 28th. And the counsel for the group is looking for enough local governments to participate to fund the proceedings. But it looks like it will be filed regardless. And then the last thing with respect to this area is, as we are not sure, based on attending the MML Legislative Committee's first meeting last week, we're not sure exactly what the 2021 legislative session will look like, including its length. They won't start up where they left off. All bills that were in the legislature that were not passed and sent to the governor for his signature are dead. New bills will have to be submitted to be introduced in the 2021 session. And no one is sure what that session will look like. By law, the legislature has to take up bills that were passed before the session ended, but vetoed by the governor after it ended. Once that's done, they can proceed with their other business. However, there's a question as to what they will do. It is possible that they will just consider the bills vetoed by the governor and the budget and then adjourn. So we're not sure what that's going to look like yet. And then, and that's about it for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. I do want to say that, you know, you've done a lot of hard work towards the census, and it's really showing the efforts. We appreciate all of that. Stephanie Graves also has been amazing. She came out last week and did those photos for us, and she gives Jerry a lot of credit for the census. And I just want to say thank you for continuing to work on that. We do know how important it is.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Gina, who else is on that committee? It's
Monica
George Coakley
Molina.
and
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, yeah, you go ahead.
Monica Molina, George Coakley, and Bill McDonald.
Great.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you to all of
Thank
them.
you so much.
George, definitely George, Monica, Bill.
Great. Jim, did you have anything you wanted to report tonight?
Yeah, just on, so thanks for asking. On fair access, our team at Van Epper and Associates put together a media package that talks about all the different things that fair access has been up to. And I've actually, I've just sent it to everybody so you'll get a copy of it. And it was something that they put together. A couple of us had a few comments offline on it, and they made a few minor changes to it. But basically, it's just a great media package that can be handed to anybody that talks about what fair access has been doing, and kind of an up-to-date acknowledgement of where we are right now. So I said, I'll just send it to, I'm going to press the send button just a minute to everybody so that they can get it. Side note, I did speak to Andrew Friedson. We happened to be at the same Zoom event, and he's optimistic that everything is hanging in there, and that we're, he hasn't heard one thing about the school or the Yeah, they haven't heard anything about which of the three options they're pursuing, but hasn't heard anything that says that we're not moving forward. So that's always good news to hear. And when you guys get a chance, if you look at that media package, if you have any questions on it, please just send them to me or Jerry or other members of the Fair Access team. And Jerry, if I'm missing anything, you feel free to chime in.
Well, the only thing I was going to add was during this past Thursday's Chief Admin Officer's conference call, I mentioned that we were told that the county broadband office was supposed to issue a report on county broadband coverage in July and a longer one on the county's ag reserve in August. And although I may have accidentally deleted it, I can't find it. And so I have Dr. Stoddard asked me to send him an email, which I did. He said he would contact the broadband office to see about that, getting that report out to us, which impacts students who are out in the hinterland who may not have the greatest Wi-Fi or internet connections, and which goes to what Lynn Shriver and the group is doing to get these safe spaces so kids can be able to attend classes and do their homework, etc. Thank you.
Hey, Jerry, I just wanted to clarify. So in terms of the census right now, people have until it's still September 30th, or they're.
The way I understand it, it's still the 30th, but well, I will say this, I am not sure. The way I read the court's thing was they actually said, no, you're not going to stop it in September. You're going to continue it to October. So, but bottom line is people need to fill it out. It's
Do it now.
Do it now. I mean, it's less than 8 minutes to do. And if I can do it, anyone can do it. Even Martin can do it. I mean, hey.
Even Martin. That's pretty good. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have approval of the minutes. Does anyone have any discussion, or would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from our last meeting as they were presented.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. That's an aye from me, Valerie.
Motion carries. Next on our agenda is public comment. Do we have anyone here to make
Madam
public?
President, we have three people. Brad Bernstein, associated with the Bull U Project, Doug McKinney from Parks and Rec and Streets, and then I've got Caroline Mills Matthews with Bates Trucking. Caroline has informed me she has till about 7:45, so I don't know if we want to have her item teed up after public comment, after we hear from these two folks, or we just want to take her under public comment and discuss the item individually as you would like as commissioners. So
I have no problem with rearranging to
okay,
make it.
so what I'll do is bring in Brad Bernstein first, representing Ms. Beaulieu. Hi, Brad. This is Seth Farr, Town Manager. You're here with all the rest of the commissioners. Usually we give about 3 minutes in this section under public comment to make some comments regarding an agenda item. It is discretion of the president and the commission if they want to yield more time. That's typically the rules.
Hi there, can you hear us?
Let me see if I can communicate to him.
He doesn't have audio yet.
Probably. Just send a chat here. Just a second.
It looks like his audio and his video are on, so.
Correct. Apparently,
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
yes, we can.
Now we can.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't know if you were starting with me when
Oh, yes.
to the YouTube. I didn't know if you were going to start with somebody else that needed to be out by 7:45.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, good evening. My name is Brad Bernstein. I represent Jennifer Beaulieu, the owner of the property located at 17001 Hughes Road. Tonight, the town commissioners are going to be discussing an amendment to a forest conservation easement, which would allow Ms. Beaulieu to exercise her rights under the current zoning classification for her property. Candidly, we were upset at what happened during the last meeting where this issue was discussed, but we are pleased that the town commissioners have decided to reconsider their position so that Commissioner Radigan, who is also on the Planning Commission, can be present. As you know, I was concerned that the legal rights of Ms. Beaulieu were violated based on the town's decision, but we hope that can be resolved this evening. By way of background, prior to building her home on the property, Ms. Beaulieu was asked to sign a forest conservation easement at the time when the town was in the process of changing the zoning requirements for her property. Ms. Beaulieu was under the impression that the forest conservation easement that she signed could be amended if the zoning requirements were changed, which they were only a few weeks after she signed the agreement. Over the past many years, Ms. Beaulieu has been an excellent citizen and has been cooperative with the town when it came to her property. By way of example, she assisted the town in correcting a title issue with respect to a town well located within her property limits. During the past year, Ms. Beaulieu and her engineer have worked extensively with the town manager, his staff, and the Planning Commission. I know that this commission has a lot of trust in those individuals to do what is right for the town, and we would like to thank them for their assistance with this process. Ms. Beaulieu has been very patient over the last 12 months and has been willing to work with everyone to address not only the concerns of the Planning Commission, but others. After a collaborative effort, the parties came to an agreement that not only assists Ms. Beaulieu, but also provides significant benefits to the town of Poolesville, including impact fees and expanding the town's tax base. The agreement was reflective in the recommendation by the Planning Commission, which seeks to amend the forest conservation easement to reflect the change in the zoning requirements for the Beaulieu property. While the recommendation would allow the forest conservation area to be reduced, the forest conservation area for the Beaulieu property would still be significantly greater than the current zoning requirements. In addition, Ms. Beaulieu would provide a substantial administrative payment to the town so that the town can establish a forest bank for projects in the future. Again, I want to thank the commissioners for reconsidering this matter, and I would also like to thank the town attorney for his assistance over the past several weeks. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm going to place you in the meeting room. Let me just take care of this. What I'll do is bring in Doug McKinney from Parks and Rec, and then we'll get to Caroline.
Okay.
Hey, Doug. Thanks for joining us tonight. Make sure his audio is connected. Doug, can you hear us?
Yes, I believe I can.
Yes. Doug, typically we give about 3 minutes at this time. You're pretty familiar with this procedure, so just go ahead and state a few things for the commission that you'd like to address.
Looks like I'm doubling back here. Hang on a second. Can you still hear me now?
Can still hear you.
All right, now I can't hear you though. Yeah, how do I get the echo away?
I'm not hearing it, but what you typically do is just mute the YouTube channel itself. You go to the lower right
Yeah.
corner, lower left with your mouse, you'll see where the volume is at.
Now you've muted yourself though.
Go ahead and Doug, I don't, for some reason, I'm not getting a lot of feedback from yours, so Should be okay.
But Doug, you are muted. You've muted yourself.
There you go.
Go ahead, Doug. Just,
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Primarily, I'm here at the meeting today to answer any questions or bounce anything off the want, given the fact that. Okay, I'm here to answer any questions, make comment if you want to with you know. Okay.
We're hearing you fine.
Doug, you're basically here to, answer any questions they might have about moving streets from Parks and Rec, and you'll be available in the meeting room in the event that there's any questions they have under this agenda item, correct?
Correct. I'm still hearing a repetition of my voice, so if it gets a little weird for me, then that's what I'm hearing. If you guys aren't hearing, that's fine, just so the mind works.
Well, if that's kind of
It cycles, loops.
if that's the crux of anything and nobody has any questions, I can place you in the meeting room. While you're in the meeting room, and if they have any questions, maybe you can figure out the mute there, but we didn't get a lot of reverberation back. Are you good, Doug? You got anything else?
No, I'm good unless you need me.
No, I'm good. Thank you. Now I'm just going to bring Caroline in. She's with Bates Trucking. She's going to talk about the cost split. As you know, we discussed an 80-20. They're counter offering with a 90-10. Of course, the town paying the 90%. They'd pay the 10% on the recycling.
And she's with Bates Trucking. She's going to talk about the.
Caroline, are you able to mute the YouTube channel?
I just did. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yes, we can. Caroline, I briefed the commission quickly on the fact of the 80-20 split, and you're requesting a 90-10 split. So I think from there you can kind of start with the position that Bates feels they're in, and what your request is before the town commission.
Okay. That sounds so. So you want me to hit start video or?
Yeah, I mean if you want to project yourself, but you can just start. You're before all the commissioners, so if you want to start presenting.
There she
Hey
is.
there, how are you? Hey, how you doing?
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. First of all, let me thank you all for giving us an opportunity to express our pleasure for having you allowing us to serve as your waste hauler. I believe when we did this contract initially, Recycle was we got a rebate on Recycle, and in a short time that those rebates all went away, and as a result, now Recycle is running at least $100 a ton. And so we tried to absorb it as long as we could, and we just can't. So the rate that we gave you all was based on a rebate and not a payment for the tonnage. I appreciate you all understanding where this industry is at this point, and I appreciate as well your ability to give us some kind of relief. We are asking because we are asking at this time if we could do a 90-10 split with you all picking up 90%. We would certainly provide you with the invoices, the receipts every month, so you'd have that number an actual number to work with. We also would like for it to retro back to when we discussed this and when we initially agreed, which was in June. This went to Morgan.
Hey, excuse me, Thanks for that presentation. And speaking from a longtime commissioner standpoint, we appreciate the service you guys have provided to us over the years and your responsiveness and your improvements. So we thank you for that.
Thank you very
Yep, no, my pleasure. Seth, can you, and by the way, my name's Jim, not Gabby. That's my wife's computer.
much.
I can go with that if you want. Seth, can you give us some raw numbers here? What does this mean?
Sure.
Um,
From a raw number standpoint, broadly, if we accept the contract as they proposed, it would cost the town, I mean, collectively, it's costing about $30,000 is what it would be. I need to get to that sheet a moment. But that was really what I had calculated before. Of course, obviously, this cost goes up a little bit. So let me take a look at these numbers. So we're talking about 26,000 on average at the 80% split. Obviously, we went to 90, we'd probably be at like 27.5 in that ballpark. So I don't know if for procedural purposes, she made her comment under public comment. Do we want to formally close public comment and just keep her here and bring up the agenda item? I know it's a procedural thing more than anything else.
Yeah, it sounds like a good idea.
So we're formally closing public comment and then moving up agenda item under Bates Trucking, which is new business number 3 for discussion. So that's the raw numbers, Jim. You know, while it's not significant, these rates do fluctuate. We don't know if they're going up or down.
Correct.
Either way, we'd be paying the tipping fee, which is basically the disposal fee. So if it went down, we'd all see a savings. If it went up, we'd all see a cost. But as I've presented my staff report, and just so you know, Caroline, as I said, we should stay at the 80-20. Neither Bates saw this coming, nor the town. Their business model didn't build it into theirs. Our budget didn't build it into taking on 80% of a cost we didn't anticipate. I understand, you know, she said in an email, and with all respect, I understand it's sort of a rebate, but nobody was really paying for the cost to dispose of recycling because it was either taken away for free or some nominal fee was provided to the hauler for that, you know, for dumping with the recycling company. So it makes sense for us just all work in good faith and stay at the 80-20 because we're both sort of losing something. And, you know, we're taking the bulk of that on. And that's where I recommend the commission to stay, but it's all your choice here.
Is that,
Well,
is that
I'm sorry.
the year, so from June till the end of this year or what?
I would say to the end of the contract.
End of the contract?
That's correct.
But the 30,000, you're saying that 30,000 or is it 26,000?
It's 26,000 based on what sort of the current rate is.
But that isn't per year.
Oh, that'd be per year. It'd be 26, yeah,
26,000 per year.
26,000. 26,000 per year.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's based on about 200 tons a year, which we're generating, and $130 tipping fee, which what it was sometime in June when I talked with them. And it was June 1st. So they want to go back to June 1st. We'd retroactive these bills if that's, you know, the direction of the commission, but depending on whatever split you choose. Jim, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm talking to my wife.
Oh.
I'm asking her, I'm getting her advice. I'm getting her advice on the tipping fees. I mean, she's the one that takes out the trash, so. No, actually, I was telling her to stop washing dishes while we're doing this. Hello, Zoom.
Hey, she could be washing your dirty underwear, so be happy. It's only.
Look, there she is, yeah. Yeah.
So back to the matter at hand.
Yes. Seth, you started it.
So what is needed from us at this point?
What I need from you at this point is a motion to say that, you know, we've made a determined to do 80-20. That's what we stand by. And, that becomes reflective and is sent back to Bates. And that becomes our offer, I think let's just maintain the relationship, and kind of keep it there. I mean, we could always play hardball and go down the path of the contract is written in our favor and we don't have to do anything. And, we could have started at 50-50, but really we started at 80-20, knowing that was a fair split instead of trying to do this back and forth car salesman negotiation to get to 80-20, right? I mean, we could have started at 70%, right? In the hopes to get to 80-20. And 80-20 was really just, this is really where we want to be, and it meets the needs of everybody.
Hmm.
Again, listen, I truly appreciate what Bates has done, and we know these costs are real. So we're not, I'm not diminishing that in the slightest bit. And as I said, we do appreciate your service and the way you guys have stepped up. But personally, I've been involved with the Bates negotiations over the years several times. We know these are extraordinary circumstances, but we have extraordinary circumstances too. And we are, I think the offer that we've made is fair. And if no one has a crystal ball, but you could look into the future and on our next contract, and I'm assuming that we hopefully we're working with Bates from now till whenever. But keep that in mind on your next contract. I think there's going to be a more volatility as time goes on.
I agree.
Yeah.
No, we do. We appreciate not having to go back and forth. And we appreciate that you started at what clearly I think you felt was reasonable, and we understand that. The reason that we are asking for the 90-10 split is we've carried this cost for 3 years.
Right. Well, you should have spoken up sooner.
Well, the contract was the contract, and we were trying to figure out how we stay within the terms of the contract without saying, hey, we can't do this anymore. And if we can't come to terms, we need to have you put this back out to bid.
Right. Well, we're glad you didn't do that. And again, we actually, it's been better because I think collaboratively, we've all worked together better as time has gone on. And and Bates has done a better collective job as time's gone on too. And not that you guys ever been bad. We just appreciate that you're addressing our needs. But I say to you this, we're going to take on a chunk that we said we could have negotiated on that chunk. But we went out with our best foot forward, and we kind of want to stick with that. And we want you guys to hang in there and talk to us on your next go round. And come with a great bid again. But if you got to recover some of that money, take that under consideration too.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't want to dominate, so the rest of the commission can say whatever they want to say. But I've had a good relationship with Bates, and I've always enjoyed them, and I like the work you guys do. So.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with what Jim said. I mean, I think the 80-20 is fair.
Yeah, I agree with Jim as well. I know it was sort of bumpy road here and there, but it appears those things have been smoothed out. And yeah, we're going to have little problems here and there, but for the most part, I think you've been doing a really good job. And however, I go with the 80-20 split that's been recommended by our town manager.
And I guess I'll just jump in there and echo, what was said. Carolyn, we do appreciate the partnership with Bates, and we appreciate, the fact that we've been able to work together for a number of years now in going back and forth to better our relationship. So thank you for that. And we do realize that this may not be the perfect solution to you, but for us, it is the best solution right now that we feel, the town is capable of taking on. So we do appreciate everything you've done, and we do appreciate you coming to our meeting tonight to advocate for Bates, which is something certainly that you are entitled to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn, for giving us your time tonight. Appreciate you coming and speaking with us. Nice to see you in the Zoom world. So, Jim, or would anyone like to go ahead and make that motion then?
So are we going to go ahead and make the motion now?
Yes.
All right, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we stick to the terms of the 80-20 split with the proposal that Bates, gave us for the recycling costs.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye, that's Valerie, aye.
Thank you. Motion
And what
carried.
about the June retro to June? The retro of the
Sorry,
payment
say
to
that.
June? The
He's asking about
retro
the
of the
retroactive
payment
payment
back
to
to
June.
June?
Right, we,
Did you have to vote on that as well?
wasn't that part of our original offer, Seth?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, back
It
to,
was?
yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that was part of the original offer. I'm fine with that then.
Sure. All right. Well, have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. I appreciate
Thank you,
your time.
Carolyn.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, now we're on to old business. First thing on the agenda is diversity.
Carrie's frozen.
Are you there, Carrie?
What that will look like for us. I'd hope to
Gary, do you want
hear
to
from
start over? You
individuals.
froze on us.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead and start from the top.
Yeah. Okay, so I had hoped to have a individual join us this evening who has done a lot of work for the county in the area of social justice, diversity, inclusivity issues. She's not able to make the meeting this evening, but she said that she can join us on at our next meeting on the 21st. We can just move forward with her then. I guess I'll just ask if anyone wanted to speak to this issue at all, since it is on our agenda, or if not, we can just speak to it at the next meeting.
I'm ready for the next meeting, but I appreciate the opportunity to have somebody speak in front of the board.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
that.
Okay, great.
I think any expertise and any input that we can get right now will be helpful. So that
Great.
would be great.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Next in old business is the pavilion rental cost recommendation. You wanna
Sure,
take that?
we discussed this a little bit at the last meeting. I don't have a whole lot to go over, just hit some quick highlights here on this discussion item. It was in the paper, as was one of the discussions from the last meeting. That's the purpose of tabling it. Didn't get any responses from that. And again, principally the fee has two parts. One, it's there for the privilege of taking a public amenity out of the public sphere and turning it into a private amenity for the time that's being rented. And then the second part of that is assisting with the replacement cost of the pavilion as an offset of those costs. So that's really all I have to state. As we discussed last time, the fee would be $60. And if there's going to be a motion, and again, one of the recommendations from the Parks and Rec Commission was that this fee be set at $60, as I just noted, and that the funds be placed into an escrow account strictly for the pavilion improvement, maintenance, and replacement. That's the motion if somebody's inclined, but obviously there's a variety of motions that could be made, but that's the one I've provided to you.
Last time there was some discussion as to whether, I think Jim wasn't sure how appropriate the fee is. I mean, I'll speak for myself. I personally thought about it and I think it's a fair fee. It's not the full value or the full cost of the town, but I think it's like covers an administrative fee and a little bit more and helps us get, start to put money away for a future pavilion. So I'm good with it.
I also think there's some added value to that fee, and that what that looks like to me is it's an exclusivity fee almost for someone who would like to reserve a park on a certain day and have the right to bring just their family there and not have other people coming and trying to use the pavilion at the same time as their, special family event. So I feel like it's, I agreed with the fee all along because I think there's a lot of good things about it. But I think that's another thing that Seth and I talked about that I feel really good about. And that is, there's been times over the years in my 26 years where I used a pavilion in town, and it would have been nice to have been able to say, it's just mine for today and just for my family. And so I think it's an okay thing for someone to pay $60 to have that right and that exclusivity, and also benefit the town going forward in our building endeavors.
If I
Yeah,
may.
I agree. Oh, go ahead, Jerry.
No, yeah, two things occur to me. One, okay, I understand what Val says and I agree with her. The thing is though, if we're going to do that, then we need to post something at the pavilion saying that from such and such a time to such and such a time, the pavilion is the exclusive use of so-and-so family or whatever, so that
Absolutely.
are aware of that, number one. Number two, the question of I don't have any problem with creating an escrow account. However, if it's used for the current maintenance as opposed to replacement, that can be $60 isn't very much, which I have no problem with, but it's, if you're going to use it for existing maintenance, that escrow account will be empty probably all the time. I mean, I would rather see it go for the replacement rather than the maintenance, ongoing maintenance. I don't know. To me, there's a little difference there.
I think we can make it exclusive to replacement if you so choose.
I'm sorry, say that again, Kath?
We can make that, Jerry, we can make it the motion in such a way that it's exclusively for the replacement, not the general maintenance.
Okay. Do you others see my point? I mean, if you have 3 events at a pavilions and that equals $180, you could have some maintenance on a pavilion that's going to cost over $180, and that would drain the account right off the bat. You wouldn't even have anything at the end of the year.
I see your point, Jerry. I agree with you. I think it should be earmarked exclusively for replacement.
Me too.
Seth, do we have any idea what the general costs are for ongoing maintenance?
I don't think the ongoing maintenance is really significant because these structures, once they're built, are sort of utilitarian as a general element. If there's any one element that I could see that might be in the maintenance category, but it also may be a time that the serviceable life of this starts expiring, is the roof itself. So the roof and the duration of the structure may come together at the same time. A roof's about 25 years. These structures are anticipated to last about 25 years or so. You'd probably be doing one and the same at the same time. So I guess it really does get, having talked that out loud, that essentially gets you to the fact that we're talking about replacement at that point in the future.
Oh, I have one other thought. Is this going to apply to all groups regardless of whether they're private or charitable?
It would apply to any group that wants to take it out of the public sphere.
All right.
So would we need to put signage on the pavilions, just directing people that they need to reserve it? Or is that already common knowledge?
I mean, in some ways, we're already renting these out for free to allow somebody to take it, right? At a certain point. So there really is no significant change here. I mean, what I was hearing Jerry say is, for the sake of quick discussion, like a realtor box that's plastic, right? That says this is reserved from such and such time for family X, right? And insert that in there. I mean, again, we're sort of running these out for free as it is now. So I'm not sure there's a dynamic change here needed, but we feel like that's necessary. We can do that.
I mean, I think the only change is going to be that if someone pays to use it, then it is not open to the public.
Right.
Correct.
So therefore, what Jerry says.
But has that always been the case?
No, someone can reserve it, but if other people come along, I mean, it's kind of hard to say, hey, you know, you can't use the pavilion today because I am.
When it's free.
When-
Right.
When it's free to everyone.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, I personally would like to make a motion that we pass this. I'd like to make a motion that we pass the pavilion rental of $60, you know, per reservation in the future. And the money to be earmarked for replacement.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Great. We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye, that's a vow.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-1. Next, we have the word streets on Parks and Rec and streets.
Yes, we spent some time at the last meeting discussing this element and what their role might be and what would not be, and what they do and what they don't do. And we decided to table it, sort of gather our thoughts a little bit. And what really developed out of that discussion at the last meeting was maybe it's just an MOU or an agreement that is sent to the Parks and Rec Board stating that we understand the value you provide in dealing with some traffic related things such as traffic calming solutions and review of the park and race permits and on-street park recommendations and naming of the streets, but the engineering domain remains more or less administrative function in terms of its condition and, you know, how it's working and the paving contracts and the paving cycle and what roads are paved, which is, like I said, an engineering administrative function. So I provided in your packet sort of a proposed recommendation if you wanted to send that back to them in some sort of, you know, just very simple agreement, nothing too fancy, to say like, look, this was just clarification of the role of streets, because that's really how the discussion shook out at the last meeting. And I've provided a synopsis here of that. So that is current, you know, recommendation is provide just some sort of statement or agreement to them regarding the roles and responsibilities under the umbrella of streets.
So we wouldn't really remove the word streets. We would just
That,
define what their role is versus what our role.
that's correct.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I like
Yeah, I
that.
like that solution.
Good compromise.
Yep.
Sure. What I think is I'm going to take what's the staff report, just kind of provide this to them in a written format. And I'm basically taking a consensus decision from this body. That's the will of this body for kind of the general role of them under this.
Sounds
All right.
good.
Sounds
All right.
good.
Thank you, Seth.
You're welcome.
Next is COVID update. You have it on new business, but I don't think it's new.
It's new for this agenda item. It's been old business, but new for this agenda.
I'll call it old. We've been in quarantine for a while now.
The only thing I have under here is we've had some discussion on a few things of what we're opening and not opening. But simply put, as most of you all know, the state is entering phase 3. And just so everybody's aware, phase 3 isn't we're back to normal. For example, at restaurants, you can have more patrons per square foot than you could before. Retail allows more people in the shop than previous. So basically, if you're allowed 50 patrons in a store, you might be allowed 75 out of the max capacity of 100, right? So it's just increasing that way at the state level. But Montgomery County, as you may be aware, is staying in phase 2, so it's no change. And so that's what we are essentially operating under, since that's the jurisdiction we sort of fall within categorically. But what that means for us is that in discussion with the commission president and the president of Parks and Rec, at least for parks, our parks, we're following Montgomery County on the rental of the fields. So we're opening up the fields for rental in terms of baseball and soccer and those sort of things, since that's what Montgomery County is doing. So if we stay with Montgomery County, we're not ahead or behind, and we're at the same footing. But that's just for running of the fields. That's not any other amenity or any other activity, for example, occurring within the park. So that's just what we're staying with. Montgomery County, just kind of beat this a little further, has a list of sports that are permitted under phase 2. Most anything that we rent out pretty much would fall in the phase 2 category. But that's the determination we've made on that. And again, the bathrooms will remain closed. I foresee that throughout this year, particularly as the season begins to end anyway. So I just want to provide that comprehensive update of where we are at with ourselves in the state and Montgomery County. I don't know if there's any questions, but
We had a number of residents look like they were all connected to the same soccer team, send in notes to town hall. What was the end result for those notes and those conversations?
I think they were the ones who wanted to rent, correct?
I think they just wanted to practice.
Well, they can practice, but as has been in the past, there's a fee for practicing on the fields associated with that. And so they would fall under this and would be permitted. And you're right, they were some of the first people to ask the questions. And we just had to clarify because at one point, Montgomery County listed soccer as a phase 3 activity and then back down and says it's a phase 2. So they're permitted and able to rent the field.
Do you know if they're using it right now?
I don't.
Emails just dried up, like whoop, that was it.
Yeah. We must take care of their issue, but yeah, we've said we are. So if they want to make use of them, there's nothing that's stopping them at this point from submitting a permit. It's more the baseball fields I know are going to be used and rented out. There's a lot of interest to get that going.
Right on.
Certainly.
Where are those emails going to? I didn't see any of those.
Certainly. Well, most of them just come to town hall anyway. There's a glitch where some of you all were getting some of them. So.
Oh, okay. Because I got a call from one community member, and then someone approached me in real life when I happened to be on a walk, but I haven't gotten any emails.
Yeah, and as you can appreciate, people have been a little bit cooped up, and as soon as Montgomery County released this, we got asked within like 48 hours of what we were doing. In fact, there was one email on Saturday night. I think the county made a decision on Friday. So, but we've handled those. Absolutely. That's all I have under the COVID update, under new old business.
Thank you. And I also just went on the state of Maryland site and saw that our zip code is at 37 cases. That's cumulative. Anybody have anything else on COVID? Okay. So next, you also have a new business, Beaulieu, which is definitely not new business. So I'll call that number 5 an old business. We did already take a vote on this issue back in July. The motion to amend a perpetual forest conservation easement that failed with a vote of 2-2 as Commissioner Radigan was not present. And I just wanted to, you'll indulge me, I just wanted to say my piece about this issue one last time for the record, and then we can move forward. So in this case, we're talking about a piece of property that was granted by Ms. Beaulieu to the town of Poolesville, and it's a legal contract signed by Jennifer Beaulieu and Jim Brown, who was our commission president at the time. And it's a perpetual easement, which means forever. There's actually very little precedent that I can find that for amending perpetual forest conservation easements out there at all, When it does happen, the easement is amended for some major public works project, like a community center, that benefits a large majority of the population. In this case, we were asked to amend a perpetual easement because someone wants to build 5 houses on their property instead of 3 or 4 that they can currently build with the easement as it is. So this has always seemed to me a no-brainer. There's no real benefit to the town that justifies amending the easement in perpetuity. This agenda item probably never should have spent any time at all on the Planning Commission, since the authority to amend the easement in perpetuity has always rested with this body. And the answer to the request really always should have been no. In July, as I mentioned, we did take a vote, a lawful vote, and indeed the answer given was no. But now the town being threatened with legal action by the property owner has made it so that I understand my colleagues would like a revote. It's my opinion that we should not be legislating based on the fact that we're not going to make everyone happy. We shouldn't be legislating based on the threat of legal action. We shouldn't be legislating based on when we're going to decide to be present for a vote, when it suits us, and we shouldn't be legislating based on fear. However, I will concede that my colleagues would like a revote. Specifically, I understand Commissioner Radigan, who is not president, would like to have a revote. And if it's the will of this body, I will make a motion to rescind the prior motion. First, I'll ask Martin if that is indeed correct, that you would like a revote.
Yeah, let me just say that I guess what I need to say is I'd like a revote, assuming that certain things are still the case. Seth, that I'm addressing this to you, that the Ms. Bellew's offer to help us start a forest bank is still in effect. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And then at the Planning Commission level, we spent a good deal of time on this, and one of the things we negotiated was that there would be like a little more of a buffer to the neighbor's property. I assume that's still in effect?
That is still in effect. That's correct.
Okay. And let me ask you this, Seth. In my mind, I'm picturing this forest bank ultimately giving us more forest than we're going to lose, like somewhere down the road, considerably more, hopefully. Is that a reasonable expectation?
I think it's a reasonable expectation that there will be the preservation of forest area that's not preserved today.
Right.
We own property that does not have encumbrances on them, meaning that this commission or future commissions can expand parks into some of these woodlands. Some, not all of them, are in what would be considered sensitive land designations, such as wetlands, streams, forests. I mean, wetlands and streams in particular. So by placing a perpetual conservation easement on them in this regard, it would offer some protection that future commissions would not be removing those areas that could potentially be removed in terms of tree canopy. So it's a preservation effect of what we have today.
And this could generate some income for the town.
That is potential to create some possible income from the town. And if nothing else, the way that would happen is, at least internally, and we've discussed a little bit, is that, as we generally know, and hopefully all know at this point, is that when the traditional forest in lieu, we desire not to accept, because that is now written to the state of Maryland instead of the town of Poolesville. And so that doesn't behoove us to write a check to the state of Maryland on this fee in lieu, because we don't know if we're going to get any of that back in the town of Poolesville, and unlikely. So what we want to do is save that forest area or the tree canopy potential for the town. And the forest bank seems to be the next best alternative, since we're no longer going to get a fee in lieu from developers.
Yeah. Well, I guess, but let me explain part of the reason I wanted to revote. And I think I'm just reiterating what I stated a month or so ago. and this is something we discussed extensively at the Planning Commission, but between the zoning change that was done years ago for the reason of having a buffer, you know, in solidarity with my fellow Planning Commission members who spent a lot of time thinking about this and recommended it, and the fact that we're going to get this forest bank, and I'm hopeful that ultimately we'll save more forest than we're losing, and maybe even make a little money along the way that can help out the town. I am in favor of voting on this again.
Is there any other discussion?
Other than, no, I agree with, or as they say at the Board of Ed, I'd like to associate my comments with Carrie's as to what she said. So I don't have anything further to add. I think, you know, the vote was the vote, and I understand what Martin's saying, and I understand that, you know, about creating a forest bank, but, you know, I just don't see, for the reasons Carrie's already expressed, the reason to do this. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other? So I'll make a motion to rescind our prior motion from, and I can't find the date, July 20th, is that right, correct?
That's correct.
Would anyone like to second my motion?
I'll second that.
Time out. Can, does it, Jay, does it have to be, it doesn't have to be one of the other people that voted for it, like Jerry, that has to second it?
Good
Or
point.
No, it does not. At this point, with a rescind and notice in advance, anybody in the body can deal with it. So anybody can second.
Got it.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. And Seth, could you do a roll call vote?
Yes. Let's do this. Martin, how do you vote?
I vote in favor of rescinding.
Jerry, how do you vote?
I vote against rescinding.
Jim Brown, how do you vote?
I vote in favor of rescinding.
Carrie Cook, how do you vote?
I vote in favor of rescinding.
Valerie, how do you vote?
I vote in favor of rescinding.
Got a 4-1. Now you would need a motion to accept what I have in my staff report, which is simply, if you're going to create a motion, is that we release approximately about 1.4 acres, and that for each square foot of that released forest conservation area, the applicant would pay 30 cents a square foot.
And
I'll
that's
make the
that's
motion that
absolutely
we,
100% guaranteed going to go towards setting up the forest bank, correct?
Yeah, it will be used for the administrative cost of setting up a forest bank. That is the sole purpose of this.
How much is that estimated to be?
Anywhere between about 17 and 20,000. The reason I say that is there was a resurvey at some point, and so a little bit of property has been, well, you know, in a deed plus or minus, right? She had a little bit more minus, so that's where when the final number come in between about 17 and 20,000.
that's the cost to set it up.
No, that's the cost that she would incur to pay the administrative fee of setting up the forest bank. But
Okay,
setting up the forest bank won't be inexpensive because there's an actual land survey, even though we own the property, to ensure like we are selling off a geographical physical space. We can't say, well, we're selling off approximately an acre, right? When you do a forest conservation easement. And then the second survey, so there's a physical land survey that you're familiar with. And then the second one is, what is the type of tree species within that location? So I just want to be clear, you know, there is a true cost to setting up a forest bank. It's not just a legal instrument.
Okay, let me ask the question then. This goes beyond that. Once it's set up, you have this area that's demarcated as a forest bank. Is that area that Ms. Baloo will be doing a subset of the entire area or just just a specific area?
I would imagine that we would survey a large enough area so we have future sections to sell off, and Ms. Beaulieu would be purchasing a smaller section of that bigger area.
And then every time we sold off sections, we would have to do a survey and a species survey as well.
The species survey is just the first time. And then I would imagine with each subsequent sale, if you will, of easement area, we'd probably have to have some legal description and boundary of that. So we do a small survey, but the biggest upfront cost is, locating the area that you're going to initially have, doing the species just once, because it's not anticipated to change over the course of time.
And one last question, what is the prospect of selling this, the remaining portions of the forest bank once it's created?
Sure. I think that part is twofold. One is in-town developers. There's a couple properties in town that are still developable. There's commercial property in town that it really doesn't make sense to have forest bank on those commercial properties, so they could buy into it. So there's a couple residential subdivisions and some commercial property beyond the one that first probably comes to mind. And then the hope and the desire is that we could sell to developers who cannot meet their forest conservation area in other jurisdictions. And potentially, if we price ourselves right, we may be lower than the market on other forest bank areas and provide some opportunity to sell to outside entities that need forest conservation area.
And how much area do we have that we can put into forest conservation?
We actually have a fair amount. It depends on where we go with this, and we've got a fair amount by Perkins Park. We've got a lot along the creek because we own most of that between those developments that have happened between Tama and Brightwell and other ones. So it's just finding the area we will have the most quality woodlands to be able to sell off. But I think we have opportunities, not just for this one, but maybe future ones.
Like how many acres, just a rough guess?
Oh, I mean, I think collectively, if we had it all up for acres, we probably have 50, 60 acres. It's not all contiguous, but yeah, I mean, there's probably 5 and 10 acre contiguous pieces that we could work with.
You feel pretty good that the demand would be there for people, getting some of this like downtown?
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to say that's speculative, but I guess if we go down that speculative path, I mean, Maryland requires forest conservation when you do road improvement projects. So, depending on what they're willing to pay or what those projects are willing to yield, we may benefit from that. So I don't see this forest conservation bank process in the state of Maryland has been around 25 years, 30 years. So, I mean, Maryland doesn't get less restrictive, they get more restrictive. So I can see the potential for this.
Great, thanks.
So are there any other motions on the table?
Well, are we somebody going to make a motion are we in a position for somebody to make a motion to accept the compromised position that was created?
I have that Valerie already did that and we're missing a second.
Okay,
Correct.
I will second that. And then with my second, I just want to comment that I do appreciate Martin stepping up here. And even though, I'm on vacation now too, and it's tough to do meetings and be on vacation at the same time. But I appreciate you coming back in. And I also want to say I respect the work of the Planning Commission. And I respect the fact that I know you were the dissenting voice on this with the Planning Commission, but you did provide a leadership role in creating the compromise and kind of an innovative solution to the product. And I do appreciate you coming up to stepping up there. So that was I can never and I would never have anything but ultra positive things to say about our Planning Commission, how hard they work to do the right thing for the town. So thank you for, making your move here.
Thanks.
And I am the official second.
You want to do another roll call vote, Seth?
Sure. We can do a roll call. Martin, how do you vote?
And can somebody repeat the motion, please?
Can we repeat the, just
I have-
repeat the way that it was originally presented, Seth?
Sure. The town commission will release approximately 1.4 acres of forest conservation area, and the applicant will have to pay 30 cents a square foot of that area that is being released.
Okay, I vote in favor.
Jerry, how do you vote?
No,
Jim Brown, how do you vote?
In favor.
Carrie Cook, how do you vote?
No.
Valerie Dickerson, how do you vote?
In favor.
3-2 passes.
Thanks again for the hard work, guys.
Welcome. Well,
could I interject something here?
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with forest conservation or anything like that. I got a request from an elder of the Presbyterian, Poolsville Presbyterian Church to endorse a grant that they're applying for to help replace the front brickwork facade on the church, which is beginning to collapse, and there's a real danger of it, some of it falling out in the future. And as it is a historic building, it's not just any bricklayer can do the works. You need special mortar and bricks, and that match the original are needed. And the first estimate they got was like $31,000. And they are applying for a historic restoration grant to cover up to $10,000 in cost. And they're putting in for a Maryland Heritage Fund Fall grant. And the church is of historic value. It's active in the community, supports WUMCO, Backpack Bites, Scouts, and etc. And it's a commitment of the members to the continuing church's mission. So I'm asking permission from the commissioners to go ahead and sign a letter endorsing their application for a grant, if you so are this feel.
Okay. I also wanted to mention Kathy Matthews just texted me. Kathy, who watches our meetings. Hi, Kathy. Kathy's with the Up County Regional Office, and she says that the deadline for completing the census survey is indeed September 30th per the Census Bureau. So just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy. Next is town manager's report.
I just got a few things. As you've all noticed, I'm sure at this point, we have the crosswalks up and they are operational at this point. So we're happy with, the past administrations have helped get this established, push this forward. Current crew that's in place, and also the Preston's team for installing these. So we're glad they're in place. I mean, this is clearly a first in several initiatives to provide better traffic calming along Fisher Avenue. One of the things what we have to address a little bit is making sure that they're ADA compliant. We may have to do just a couple things, but we're pretty close to being ADA, but we may need to finish out a few things as well on those. So those are up.
Can I ask one question on that?
Yes.
Did you clear up the problem where if you press the one up by Dollar General, the one down by McDonald's goes off as well?
That's correct. We no longer have all four going off at the same time or both crosswalks going on at the same time. So we've made sure that when you're only at the one pushing it, only that one goes forward.
Right,
That
thank
one
you.
flashes. Absolutely. A couple of different things that's also happened is in this year's budget, we had video camera work of well 6 and the wet well. Those are basically the final couple wells before you go to the treatment plant. And we video cammed those for I&I infiltration. We did find one leak, We anticipated to find a little bit more, but we did find one leak, which is leaking about 5 gallons a minute, which doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it amounts to 7,200 gallons a day. And that's with really low pressure. At higher pressure, we anticipate when the creek's up and all the water's flowing. This was done during a dry spell. So 7,200 gallons, low pressure, dry spell. But we anticipate that probably goes up to about 10 gallons a minute and actually doubles. And that's 14,400 gallons a day. And while it just seems all like numbers, those numbers actually equivalent to actual dwelling units as well. So there's a functional purpose of tightening up our system and making sure that we're adding capacity to the system. So, finding that one leak was, really equivalent to about 40 homes when the pressure is really on this and it's pushing in about 10 gallons a minute. So, this is why we do I&I. And obviously our infrastructure is older. It's not just about dwelling units and those sort of things, but our infrastructure is leaking. We have to take care of it. So the wet well is about 32 feet deep, hadn't been pumped out in 30 years. And so, they found grease about the size of beach balls down there and 30 years of rags stuck for about the last 8 feet of the 32 feet. So we've just discovered the ladder going down there was extremely rusted and would be basically unsafe to use at a certain point. There's a grate that needs to be reinstalled as well. So, we found some abandoned equipment, some other things, got a better understanding of what's down there that we weren't as familiar with. So it's just on the infrastructure side of our operations. Coming back to events a moment that Valerie started discussed earlier, we postponed the big flea from June to October 3rd. And usually there's I think there's 4 key elements that happen with the big flea. There's a community yard sale, there's the shredding, there's the paint, and then the electronics, those 4 sort of items. We're not doing the yard sale this year for the obvious reasons. The county is not doing any electronic disposal program this year. So that would basically take the big flea down to paint and shredding. And those are actually costs that the town bears directly. We do have a sponsor typically who helps offset those costs by sponsoring the event, which has been Clark Azar. And then there's no vendor fees from the yard sale element, which has also helped to offset some of those fees. So if we were to do this on October 3rd, we'd be basically down to the shredder, shredding, and then the paint cost and the paint process. So basically all residents could do is take their paint cans in and do shredding. So I wanted to present that to the commission to see what they wanted to do. This is definitely not an event where I think we're going to lose steam on if it's not as good of an event, but it comes down to the functionality of what are we hosting at this point, since it's been scaled back to 50% of what it typically is. I don't know if the commission wants to continue forward. It probably costs us about $2,000 to host the event.
Seth, a question for you on the $2,000. What's the breakdown? Because I think I'd be interested into sponsoring the shredder.
Sure. So the shredding, we pay about $400 on that. And again, I think some of that may have been paid in part by the $750 sponsor fee of Clark Azar. And then the paint last year cost us about $1,100. And it's just all depends on how much people return. We split that cost with the residents. Let's say it's $4, they pay $2, we pay the other $2 to help with the disposal. But you're talking probably, that's really the breakdown, right? If you did the sponsorship in total, then it would be collectively, about, you could say about $2,000 to $2,200 at most.
What refresh my memory, what time of year does this usually happen?
It's usually in early June. That's correct, right, Valerie?
Yes, that's correct. But we moved it until October
That's correct.
due to COVID, but
What
typically
day is it moved to?
October 3rd.
That should be a Saturday. It's
It
always been
is.
on a Saturday.
And Carrie, do we know how long the farmer's market's going to go on?
We don't, but I'm sure we could move it to a Sunday or.
I think,
Well, it might be a good thing, you know, to sort of combine the farmer's market with,
Yeah.
you know, the recycling and stuff like that. It might even like drum up business for the farmer's market, which would be good.
I think it's a service, honestly, that the community looks forward to. And I think it can, you know, kind of manage itself without having to have, you know, a lot of interaction of people and, you know, easy to do with social distancing. I personally am in favor of still hosting it just because, you know, I've seen some comments on the town pages asking about the recycling and I'm in favor of still doing it myself.
sure.
If I just might say a couple things too is, I don't know how many people have gone down to the waste transfer station recently, but I had to go down county for something. I can't remember what it was, but they've installed these sets of speed bumps, which I think were probably designed by dentists or orthodontists to have people's teeth fall and fillings fall out. So, and I've gone down there to take paint and you know, flammable liquids down there for recycling. I know that, you know, a lot of people probably have that stuff around and would like to get rid of it. Now, the latex paint, all you have to do is open the can and let the solvent in there evaporate. But the shredding, I think that's a great benefit. And my only question with that is, my understanding was, and Valerie, you'd know, the last time they had the shredding event, the shredder was full before the day was over.
I can't say that I do know the answer to that, Jerry. I'm not sure if I do, unfortunately. I was there for half of the day for the paint and the shredding, but I don't know the answer to that.
So I'm in favor of it. I just, you know, I would think though, we might need some people to sort of control traffic when they drive up to the shredder or to drop the paint off, to make sure that people, you know, are separate, stay, you know, separated in their, you know, et cetera. So anyways, yeah, I just want to make sure that, because I heard a couple people say that they had taken stuff to the shredder and it was already full and they couldn't accommodate them. And so anyway.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Kathy could answer that for us, though, I'm sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Valerie.
Yeah, I mean, we would have to put out some, you know, obviously some typical social distancing regulations, masks, you know, must be worn at all times for the event. I don't know. Anybody else have any thoughts that you could bring to mind that maybe would shed a different light on it?
I'm in favor of doing it flat out. I think it's a great idea. And it also stops, all you have to do is go drive to the beauty spot. And even when it's open, look at the amount of trash that's on the side.
Yeah.
Of it. It's anytime we can give our, the people in this region an opportunity to shred and discard stuff that they would normally have to take to the transfer station or would not be accepted at the beauty spot. I think it's a smart move. And I definitely would be willing to sponsor it. I just want to see what the total dollars all that are. That's all. And if we do decide to do it, we want to start doing it right now, promoting it right like tomorrow.
Yeah.
Talk with
Only a
Kathy
few weeks
tomorrow.
away.
I agree.
I mean, it's already.
Can we make it like so it lines up to the hours of the farmer's market, just so you know, maybe you can get some cross traffic?
Great idea.
I got that noted. We can deal with this. Thank you. Wanted to confirm commission. Couple other things in the way of events. One of the things we've been talking about and proposing to do and is actually have the community scarecrow contest. That again is a social distance based activity. It's just out in the commons. We can do that. Clearly we'll do the holiday lighting here at the town. I mean, it's not gonna be the holiday lighting event that you're familiar with, but we're at least gonna put up the lights here at Town Hall and Wayland Commons as well, right? That you've always seen there without sort of the event element. But since the holiday lighting contest is also a socially distanced activity, we can also do that this year. So those are just a couple things I think we can sort of salvage in that regard. I think I'll let Valerie talk to this a little bit more. I think the community scarecrow contest had a little bit more going on with it, but essentially it's just going to be clearly the scarecrows themselves and also the ability to vote on, the favorite one.
So Seth, so residents of the town, private families and businesses will still be able to create their scarecrow. And I guess we will have some regulations as to how and when they can drop it off at town hall.
Yeah, they've traditionally installed these themselves. Is that correct?
No.
Okay. Well, then what we'll do is we'll have that process in place. So it'll essentially be no different than the past.
Yeah.
You know,
So in the past, they create it and then they bring it to town hall and staff actually installs it onto Whalen Commons in some symmetry of order.
sure.
So that, people can walk around the commons and look at them.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I definitely would love to see that still take place. I mean, I feel like, it would be nice not to have to cut out all of our traditions and the things that really light our town up.
Right. No pun intended, but.
Yep, that's right.
So I think those can all be done in a safe environment, as well.
That's great.
Sure. Kathy and I'll work on those a little bit more and fill those out a little bit more. The last thing I just have here is I think you may have seen it last night or woke up to it this morning, but there was a little bit of consternation about some line paving over in Cattail. And I did get down to the bottom of it, and our paving contractor, their subcontractor for doing the line work, was out there quite late last night and caused a little bit of upset residents, as you can imagine, because I understand it started at maybe 10 o'clock. So it's pretty late for equipment out there with flashing lights and beeping and people trying to coordinate out there. So that's what that was all about. I'd gotten a few questions.
And I appreciate you looking into that this morning, Seth.
Sure.
Anytime you have residents upset that their family couldn't sleep until after 2 a.m., that's never good. So I appreciate you looking into that.
You're welcome. That's all I have under my town manager report.
I have
So what is our recourse in terms of the
Yeah.
fact that
Still
the
looking at
paving
detail.
company did what they were expressly not supposed to do in the contract?
Sure. And to clarify for everybody, our contract specifically states they're supposed to be working during typical normal daylight hours. And clearly they were not. They're in violation of the contract. I'd have to see, what the penalty and fine is for the violation of the contract and see what we would want to, ding them for, just as a recognition that it was caused some upset residents and they were not happy. But I'd have to look in a contract for what those penalties may be.
Yeah, Seth, anything you can do to make sure that companies like this don't do that again would be good. Like, so if you can ding them or whatever
Yeah.
the language that's probably a good thing.
And I do want to state that we've been overall very satisfied with their quality of work as well. For sure. I mean, it's been a very good company to work with, but there is this element here where, there's a little bit of communication or understanding. And I suspect their subcontractor lined up a lot of work for the day and tried to knock out a lot of work for whatever reason. And this is what happened.
Seth, when you spoke to the foreman of that job or whoever you spoke to, was it the person we were contracted with?
It was our project manager for the project.
Project manager, right? I'm sorry. And
Sure.
what did they have to say about that?
Well, they were apologetic and didn't even realize their own subs are working that late at night in town.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious as to what, the company that we actually contracted had to say about that situation.
Yeah. Because I had to call her to confirm, that it was her crew. And she's like, well, it probably was us. Because she was out here, Thursday and they weren't lined yet. And she was anticipating them to get out here soon. And, nothing else was over there. Nothing was happening at the elementary school. I mean, I drove to the vicinity just making sure that it wasn't some other offsite work, but it's clear it was the line work. The lines were brand new and fresh. I mean, it had been barely driven over.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you can understand when the state paved Fisher, was it last year? That was all at 2 a.m. and, but I mean, that's a fairly major thoroughfare. So it's a little bit more understandable, but, on a residential street, I mean, that's pretty crazy.
And a school night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The school night.
Yeah,
All right. Any other questions? Oh, yeah. Go ahead,
I
Jerry.
had one other thing. I forgot to mention earlier, the Montgomery County chapter of the Maryland Municipal League is going to have its Zoom meeting on the 17th of September at 5 p.m. Dr. Gales, Travis Gales, the county health officer, will be the speaker of the event. So, encourage everyone who has questions, to attend. I'm going to ask our chapter secretary to send out a call for questions so that we can provide them to Dr. Gale before he attends the meeting. Anyway, so.
He's becoming quite famous now.
Yes, he has. And one last thing is, I don't know, I am concerned about this ZTA that Councilmember Reamer has introduced, 20-01, which it will allow what they're calling community solar to be introduced in the Ag Reserve. And in 1981, the county council had the foresight to create this nationally recognized agricultural reserve for the specific purpose of the preservation of farmland and open space. And farming is for farming for table crops as well as commodity farming of corn, wheat, sorghum, soybean, and livestock, cattle, horses, etc. And the preservation was specifically designed to prevent housing develops and industrialization. And I understand the good intent of the people who think they would be helping us in doing by allowing this to happen. But at the same token, all the agricultural groups in the county are opposed to this ZTA, and the zoning text amendment conflicts with the master plan for the Ag Reserve. And so I just have real concerns about this because we've already seen little cuts here and there in the Ag Reserve, like with the Barnesville Oaks thing. But I'm really concerned about this. And I understand there's a lot of sensitivity going on with this with respect to what Councilmember Reamer, how he could help us with getting a new high school and everything else. But at the same token, we all moved out here for a reason. And, and one of the reasons was to be in the Ag Reserve. And I think that is an important consideration for why a lot of people move out here, in addition to the high school, because they like to see, this area where there is farming. And heck, we had farming over on the Willard property next to Town Hall for several, years now going on, and for as long as I've been here. And I think people like that. They feel a sense of relief when they get out here, and it has a relaxing effect on people when they're driving back home. But I am really concerned that this has an unintended consequence, which everybody is going to poo-poo and say, oh, that's not going to be a problem. No, they'll never do that. Well, never say never and never say always. So I don't know whether the commissioners want to take any sort of stand on this community solar, which is a misnomer because the electricity generated by solar panels, even the ones at our plant, go into what they call the PJM grid, which is aggregated with a lot of other electricity and not sent necessarily to our area, but goes all the way to New Jersey in surrounding states. So, I have real concerns about that, and I just raised that for everyone. And whether we would want to take this up in our next meeting.
Thanks for the update on that, Jerry.
Does anyone have any discussion about that or anything else?
I say we talk about it at the next meeting.
Also,
Okay,
one other thing,
Yeah.
we need to talk about whether or not we want to contribute to the legal case concerning the FCC's order and trying to modify or overturn the Ninth Circuit Court's opinion. I don't know. I think there would be a charge, could be, I heard maybe $2,500, but but again, that's something that impacts us long term. So I raised that issue as well for next time.
I'm going to reserve my comments on both of those till the next time.
Okay.
all right, if nothing else, any other questions for Seth? I think we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second. Or make.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good evening. Thanks.
Thanks, Seth.
Thanks. See you guys.
Steph, can you wait for 1 second?
Yes.
Are you going into closed session?
We are going into closed session. I'm sorry.
So you can you make that motion so we can record for the minutes who made the motion and stuff to go into closed session?
I'll make a motion that we now go into closed session.
I'll second that. Do we need a second?
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Yeah. And I'll send everybody a Zoom, another Zoom.
Jerry, you had a question?
All right, y'all take care.
Tomorrow.
Right.
Jerry, do you have a question?
Yeah, it was about that, about the picnic table thing. I'm gonna agree with you, even though the lady's upset.
Correct.
I'm gonna send her something back.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, you heard Carrie state her numbers at 37, and I still thought they were hovering about the 28 where they had been for a while.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I'm just gonna say, with the fact that society is so litigious today, and we don't know whether they get the COVID here or get the COVID there, but if they can find somebody to sue, they're gonna do that. And I don't want to have the town basically held responsible for someone contracting the virus when we could have prevented it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jerry, very
All right.
much. So, all right, we'll talk later. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening.